Welcome to You're Making It Worse. I'm Eliot Glazer.
I'm Brent Sullivan.
And I'm H. Alan Scott.
We're here. We're queer.
Meh. Textual healing.
So Virginia's Sweet Briar College became one of the few women's colleges in the nation to ban transgender people, sidelining the academic norm of allowing trans women into women's colleges.
Yeah.
And their reasoning has a lot of people calling out the school's administration, including most of the college's own faculty. Quote, an applicant is qualified for admission if she confirms that her sex assigned at birth is female and that she consistently lives and identifies as a woman, says the college's admissions website. They say this policy stems from the will of Indiana Fletcher Williams, who died in 1900 and whose estate was used to found Sweet Briar College in 1901. Williams's will says the school was to be a place of girls and young women, which the college now interprets as excluding trans women. The will also outlined that the school was to be, quote, for the education of white girls and young women. Very cool. Nice. Very cool. Sweet Briar College believes that single-sex education is not only our tradition, but also a unique cultural and social resource. President Mary Pope Hudson said in a statement. So the university faced immense backlash for this decision, particularly out of concerns that this decision would repel more students, including those who meet the criteria. The university nearly shut down in 2015, and it currently has 460 students. John Gregory Brown, an English professor and faculty senate chair, called the policy absurd and morally repugnant.
Oh, wow.
He said Williams also wouldn't have entertained the notion that somebody who was disabled would be a potential student, he said. I don't quite see that connection as well. But the faculty of the college voted 48-4 to ask the board to rescind the policy. One member abstained. A member of the board resigned over the new policy. The student body, so additionally, the Student Government Association said the policy is, quote, alienating, unnecessary, and it reflects the rise of transphobia in our country. The president, Isabella Paul, is non-binary and told the AP that over 10% of students are transgender to some degree and don't meet the school's current requirements.
Yeah, it seems like they're going to be closing again.
Good old Sweet Briar.
It just sounds like bad. I mean, put aside the clear disgust of sort of all of the phobias involved, the transphobia, there's a list of things going on there. It just seems like bad business.
Bad business.
Academia. It reminds me of, and we've talked about this a lot of times because it still blows me away how many people are just so afraid of gender, on the conversation of gender, and just people just doing whatever the fuck they want to do and identifying as they identify and respecting it. Like, it blows me away that it's such a foreign, novel, like controversial conversation.
Yeah.
But it does remind me of when marriage equality was in 2004, when there were lots of state constitutions that were trying to say that marriage was between a man and a woman, and they did all these things, and then corporate America came in there and scooped in over the years after that and really sort of normalized it in a way that proved that being discriminatory like this is actually bad for the bottom dollar, which is frankly a very conservative Republican idea. And thus, if you step in line with what business is telling you is good for business, everybody wins, including both the people who want to make a lot of money, but also, or have a profitable business, but also the groups that are marginalized that are benefiting from this success. And hopefully then they can also make money too, and everyone can be happy. And that's what we should be celebrating.
I actually remember when I was in college, a good friend of mine at the time was enrolled at Smith College, which is an all-girls school in Massachusetts, in the Berkshires, Eliot, Northampton, Mass. And I remember at the time it was already a discussion amongst the student body, which was like, who is allowed, who is permitted to the school. And it sounds like the way that the cards have fallen for almost all girls schools is that you are permitted if you are a trans woman, and with exception to, it looks like, I think there was one other exception, and Sweet Briar College. And I think it's particularly like bizarre that there's all of these arguments and debates and discussions over like trans identity when it's amongst students, and it's so strange that we're like that. It's like, more often than not, as you'll find, I mean, according to the student body president, if 10% of the student body at Sweet Briar College identifies as transgender to some degree or another, like, I'm sure this is not something that is bothering the student body. So,
this is not
why
them.
are these old coots making all these laws that are, impacting folks that
why are you weeding out
inclusive?
people who want to go to your school? It's not. I assumed it was like a Christian school, some sort of fundamentalist school, and it doesn't seem that it is. And
doesn't seem like it is. Yeah.
But the craziest part about it is that it's like, so when you're admitting students, you're considering students to admit, what are you checking? Like that they identify, if they don't identify as a woman, as a transgender woman, then they're probably not applying to this. Like, who's aching to get into this school that doesn't want to be there in an all-female student body? Also, like, are you checking genital? Like, what are you checking here? Why are you so invested? It's such a strange thing to invest your energy in.
Made up issues that trickle down from politicians who use these sort of hysterias in order to get people to vote one way or the other. But the ripple effect of it is that then it becomes a genuine, quote unquote, concern for adults who think that there is a threat there, when the children and the kids and the faculty who are just working every day with school are saying, this isn't an issue. Stop it. Like, we don't need this conversation. No one asked for you to do this. It's the same thing. It's the same thing with the drag bans. It's the same thing with the books at school. It's the same thing with all these things that are made up hysterias created by right-wing, or largely politicians who are, but I mean, I can't even just say just right wing. I don't know, but like made up by politicians in order to make people angry, in order to get them out to vote or to not vote, depending upon what the situation may be. And that's what it all is. And it's trickled down from that. It's disgusting.
Unless there's a chance that Indiana Fletcher Williams on her deathbed in 1900 was like, and one last thing, no trans students at my school. Like, who cares, Indiana?
It's so
I imagine her like Katharine Hepburn. No trans girls at my school.
Indiana Fletcher Brown.
Indiana Fletcher Brown here reporting. No trans students at my school.
Well, I certainly, that's a good end. But I certainly don't think Eliot would care about, a school where he couldn't spread his legs. So this isn't a school that he cares deeply about.
That's a good end.
Not even joking.
We are joined today by someone in a location on location in Gay Central, Gay Central America, Fire Island, comedian and illustrator, Max Wittert. Hello, Max.
Hey, Max.
Hi. Just wait. What you guys can't see is that I just waved to my microphone.
Oh, nice.
Fair enough.
Nice. What I do love, before we started recording, just for our listeners, and viewers at home too, that Max apologized for his location, which I think that actually should be a requirement for most people who are in Fire Island. Don't you, Max?
Mm-hmm. Oh, to apologize for being here?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, maybe lead with that.
How's your trip been going so far, Max? Like, what do you like? Do you embrace the Fire Island culture, or are you sort of equally repulsed by it?
Oh, okay. So
I don't know if I'd say we're all repulsed.
I wouldn't say we're repulsed by it. We like to make fun of it. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, but I do have to choose a side. Okay.
Yeah.
So if I had to choose a side, I'm gonna take like an edgy stance and say I fully embrace it.
Oh, I love that. Wait, so what part of it do you embrace? That there's nothing fun to eat there, there's like lots of sex there?
There's tortilla chips. There's too much sun. I don't know. It's oh my God, I'm sorry. I'm learning new things about this house as I'm sitting at this desk, and there's this desk opens up to reveal there's a towel in here, a
Oh.
keyboard, and a shell.
Well, okay. I mean, you're in Fire Island, so
How did you not embrace that?
the
It's
towel
the
makes
weirdest-
sense.
It's the weirdest
Yeah.
Twitch stream ever.
Yeah, truly. So you embrace Fire Island, Max.
I do. Well, yeah. I think it's very, very pretty here.
Okay.
And I like hanging out with my friends.
Okay.
Is the vibe more like stay at the house and cook and drink and hang? Is it more like party hop? Is it like, for people who don't know or haven't been there, Fire Island is like a stretch, parallel to Long Island that everybody from New York goes to, and it's got all these different sections, and the Pines is the gay section.
Not even just New York. I mean, people gays
Right.
from all over
East
the
Coast,
country
the world,
vacation there. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just, but it's like you can kind of choose your own path there, but one path might be, chilling and
Debauchery.
hanging. The other path might be debauchery. There's like circuit parties on the beach. Like, what's your path?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So my path is access to a grill.
Oh.
Hanging out in little wet shorts all day.
Little
wet shorts. I like being like, oh my god, I didn't know you were here, and there's always, of course, the getting drunk thing that is really appealing to someone like me who spends most of their time not drunk.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
I say that about Palm Springs a lot, that like because I don't get drunk very often either, like very rarely. But
Very rarely.
I often say to friends that like the only time I really, really enjoy getting drunk is when I know I have a rented house. I don't have to go anywhere. I don't have no responsibilities, and I can just get shit-faced in a rented house.
I also love that there are no cars here. That's really nice.
That's a biggie. Where are you from originally, Max?
Well, get this, Los Angeles.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm really not used to the no car thing, and it's really quite refreshing.
Yeah, where in Los Angeles?
Okay, so I'm from Santa Monica. I'm going to pivot back for a second and be really transparent with you, where it's like, I listed all these things. If you really wanted to know what my vibe was, I would just show you what is right next to this computer, which is a pile of uncommon spices that I brought to the island.
Oh, all right.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Including something that is actually illegal to sell in the US, so don't publish this episode. But is a tonka bean.
Oh, that's illegal here?
It's illegal to buy it, apparently.
Oh,
What
right.
is-
What is a
know?
tonka bean? Yeah.
I know. So the reason is because, oh my god, it smells amazing. I wish I could put it in front of my camera and you guys can smell it. So it has this compound in it called coumarin that is toxic, but it's more present in cinnamon than it is in tonka.
Oh,
and
sure.
Tonka has been illegal since 1954, I think. And so, wow, why do I know so much about this? And I think it must have just been something where it was like, I don't know, like the U.S. had some issue with
They have like a weak
in
lobby
Indonesia.
Group. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they're like, we
Tonka
don't
has
want
a
that
weak
those
lobby group.
commie
Yeah,
beans
right.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then
Cinnamon's
no one
more
really
powerful.
updated it. Yeah, no one updated it because
A lot of
it's
money in cinnamon, sweetheart. I'll tell you that.
I'll tell you
True.
how much.
That was the most dad response we've ever had from Brent on this podcast.
Closest Brent has gotten to ever saying like a colloquial
Girl.
gay girl.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Bitch.
Wait,
Right.
Max. So
Yes, sweetheart.
you blend your stand-up and your illustration work into your live shows, but also just so much of what you do. How did you navigate sort of like putting together a live show that incorporated those things that also just felt like a show that people could go to,
Totally. I have to confess right off the bat that I actually came into this totally unprepared to talk about myself. I really thought I was going to be a sort of like background thing to you guys and just sort of like highlight what you were doing. And I was going to kind of be like, yeah, you guys go off. You're so good and so funny.
Oh my God. That's so funny. I can't imagine ever making somebody sit here and tell us how funny we are.
Well, it's like that's the reason that people listen to podcasts, because it's like, oh, I've developed this like
Friends
social
hanging.
relationship
Yes.
with like some people hanging out, and then it's like the guest just sort of adds a little twist. It's like I'm a lime flavor or whatever.
No, we want to
to
know
her.
about you, Max.
Yeah, we
Tell
want to know
us.
about you. Come on.
Okay, so I went to school for illustration, and then I went to prison. No, okay, sorry, that's not funny. Okay, delete that. So I went to prison for selling Tonka bean, for buying Tonka beans. So I went to school for illustration, and then I moved to New York because I was like, oh, I am going to be part of a thriving illustrative community in New York, where a lot of like publishing happens.
Yeah.
Let me stop you right there. So when you say you're moving to New York to like enter the illustration scene, what does that mean? Because it's sort of foreign to me.
The
What does that mean to you?
Chasts of the world, the Chasts.
Yeah,
Who?
exactly. Well, kind of. But
Wait, who is that?
You know, there's Roz Chastain. She's like a New Yorker cartoonist. You would absolutely recognize
You know
her
her
work.
immediately.
Yeah, she has
That's
like
not
those
her
like
name.
really frantic like illustrations of like people hunched over on couches worrying
Got
about
it.
things, and then like here's a post-it list of all the things that scare me about rivers or whatever. That's such a bad description of her work.
No, that's not. It's not. It's really not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
great.
neurotic, Jewish, New York. Yeah. It's.
Yeah. It was
Susan
actually very
Sontag.
It was actually very Roz Chast of me to be worried that I described it wrong.
Exactly.
So when I was thinking about the community, I was thinking about some of my favorite illustrators that lived here at the time, and you know, a lot of like comics people that I was really into, and it just seemed like the place to be if you were an illustrator, because it's also proximus to publishing houses and things like that. And then what I realized was that it's really hard to make yourself a part of an illustration community because it's done completely in solitude. You get assignments by yourself.
Yeah.
You get assignments by yourself. You work on them by yourself, and then you send them off by yourself.
Yeah.
And in fact, one of the reasons that illustrators become illustrators is because it is solitary and they don't have to be around people for it. And so the only times that I would meet people was like at like these comics conventions that happen two times a year or something. And I was like, okay, I'm not getting the artistic community that I wanted. And, you know, and also like, you know, shit just doesn't always like go the way that you expect when you're diving in. And so, and I sort of always had this thing in my back pocket where I was like, oh, I really want to perform, but you know, I can't. So there's actually this joke in my show that I do where I talk about, and it's not even a joke, it's actually just a story about when I was 7 years old. I confessed to myself that I really want to become an actor, but it's too late to start now. So, and I've kind of had that mentality for my entire life about like everything. So, you know, it's like, I was already like 25 and living in New York, and it's like, well, it's too late to start doing stand-up now, you know, but I was like, well, I'm just going to give it a shot anyway. You know, I'm already a sea hag. So I mean, well, what do I have left to lose? Right. I'm 25. And so
Wait, hold on. Let me stop you there for a second. It's funny because I was just a part of a conversation with some friends literally like a few hours ago that was kind of talking about the same theme, which was like you always have this idea in your head that like after 22 you can't do anything new. And I'll read stories about like, you know, someone who goes to, you know, grad school at 50 or whatever, and you're like, oh, they're so brave. They're so brave. But of course you never think you could do such a thing, but you're like, why not do such a thing? Like there's no reason not to pursue whatever you want because, you know, we have a long
I mean, so many of like I'm basically the only thing that motivates me is fear. And I think the idea that I would down the line like regret not having given it a shot, that made me so like fearful of myself in the future that I was like, well, that's okay, now I'm just gonna do it. But so anyway, I'll just cut to the chase, which is that I very quickly fell into like a stand-up community like that was very weird. Like during I think my first or second open mic, I met Julio Torres and Sam Taggart, and you know, and they brought me to this really weird open mic called Do Something, which was run by River Ramirez. And in that space, like it was basically just like all weirdo comedians trying to like kind of out weird each other. And I was like, okay, well, what can I do to impress these people? And so I started doing these pieces where I would project my drawings on a projector next to me while I was like acting out stuff that was like heightened or changed by what was on the screen, and it killed. So I was just like, all right, fine, I'll just like keep trying to do stuff like this. And so the format. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Brent.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is that drawing from the Uncanny Valley? Is that what you're referring to?
The live show. Well, your live shows.
So what that was the original name for this show that I'm doing now.
Mm-hmm.
The first iteration of it, I called Drawing from the Uncanny Valley, but I changed the name after the first performance to I Can Steal Your Mother. And that's what I'm doing now.
Got it.
Yeah.
And how are you how do you explain sort of how the show works in a lot of ways? Because I feel like for a lot of people who listen to the podcast, they know stand-up really well, but I don't know if they would know sort of the process of how you incorporate that into a live show.
Well, gosh, I would really love if anyone who's in the show could tell me. No, could tell me, because every time I try to explain it, it just sounds so annoying and confusing. But basically, I am sitting at a computer the entire time with a microphone in front of my face, and there's a big screen, and there's just the tiniest bit of light on me just so you can see that I'm there, but not enough that I bring too much attention to my physicality. But basically, I'm doing stand-up and storytelling, but all of the visual of it is happening on a screen that I'm controlling from my laptop.
It's funny because when you describe these things, that certainly feels so coastal performance, that's the kind of the kind of stuff you don't see in Michigan or Missouri or even Long Island, Eliot. And so, is
that Eliot's?
Eliot is from Smithtown,
Long Island. Eliot. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
That is kind of your nickname a little bit, Eliot.
Sort of,
a little bit, yeah.
But but it's also funny and refreshing because, everything that's kind of done on the coasts ends up perculating into the Midwest. So it's fun to hear shows like that.
And also,
really dynamic.
the work that you're doing. Also you're doing stuff for the New Yorker now too. So it's sort of that's all kind of worked out.
Well, it's funny because it's and I have a bit in the show where I talk about this, how the differences between being an illustrator and being a comedian, and because they are very divergent. So a comedian, their whole art is necessitated by being with a lot of people all the time, whereas an illustrator is very solitary. And I'm sorry, I got stoned about 28 hours ago, and so I'm still coming down from that. I'm trying to remember the thought process that I was going down with.
You said comedians tend to be in groups and be social, whereas illustrators tend to be solid.
Right, okay. I guess I was just kind of talking about the process of reconciling these things, which is you said I was doing stuff with the New Yorker. Basically, there are actually, as it turns out, a lot of places where the two practices overlap, also in animation and comics, and now I'm trying to incorporate them into performance, but it's it's a little hard to explain because, and I hate to be this kind of person, but it's hard to explain because not a lot of people do it,
it's a unique concept that it doesn't sound like anybody else is doing. I have similar issue trying to explain the stuff that I do on stage because it's a little left of center when you might think it's something else. But
what do you do? You can just call it boylesque. You just call it what it is.
Ew! Boylesque. Oh my god!
Yeah,
boylesque.
Boylesque.
I have an allergy to burlesque.
Well,
don't listen. I went to school in the Bay Area. You don't have to. Don't.
I feel like Max, that you kind of coming from LA, going to school in San Francisco, and then now being in Fire Island. I feel like your locations are just a parade of eye rolls. It's just there's just so much happening, and everyone's just oh, I got the joke. San Francisco, I got the joke.
Yeah.
Do you feel that sometimes with trying to even with your touring show and everything, trying to relate to other audiences, like what Brent said, being very coastal, there can be a disconnect there sometimes.
So if there's one thing that I've struggled with in this process of selling myself in show business is that I am really not broad. I'm just not. I do have some of my most to me my most embarrassing like audiences are like the ones where I'm like, oh, this is a very NPR audience. Like, the people that are like, they're like smiling and they're like, this is so engaging, but they're like not like,
They're not
I'm like,
laughing.
I'm like fucking funny right now. Like, freaks, but yeah, no, I mean, it's true that it's like, I don't know how this plays in Des Moines, like I haven't done it there. I will at some point, but I mean, I am coast. I don't know how to. I don't do the middle.
There are weirdos everywhere.
I haven't done that. What?
There are weirdos everywhere who are hungry to see.
I agree.
Weird stuff left, and Alan and Brent have both lived in the Midwest, and Alan in Chicago in particular. And like, there's, I mean, I firmly believe that something can seem coastal, or like even like talking about like gay guys, like things can seem coastal, but I think there's I'm going to say it, a diaspora that's spread everywhere, where if you look in certain pockets, there are people who are just waiting to, meet the same kind of material.
Yeah.
Do you guys censor the word diaspora when?
No, I laugh because the Jew in me was like, of course, the Jews got to talk about the diaspora. We got to work it in somehow.
Yeah. Also Brent, a great drag name.
Brent, do you feel left out being the only non-Jew on the podcast right now?
That's a great question. I am so supportive of the Jewish community. I don't feel left out at all.
Which is what any bigot likes to say. I support that. I support them.
Yeah.
I support them.
Some of my best friends are Jews.
Oh God!
I still tell the story of being raised in Ann Arbor, which is there's lots of Jewish folks in
I've never met her.
Ann Arbor, and but having no idea like what Jewish stereotypes were. And I babysat a kid when I was younger. I babysat a kid named
Moshe Finkelstein?
Simon Mermelstein. And my mom's like, oh, I think they're Jewish. I'm like, really? The Mermelsteins?
The Mermelsteins.
Actually, let me ask, if we're going to stay on Judaism for a second. You are Jewish, obviously. I mean, I think, right? Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, as much as you're getting,
we know when we see each other, right?
Yeah.
I guess we're getting super coastal, but I do feel, as somebody from New York, I have been kind of shocked by the sort of Western LA, California Judaism that I find to be so different from like East Coast Ashkenazi, neurotic, like hunched over, like that is in my bones. But is your experience of Judaism, and I don't know if you can know any different before moving to New York, but do you find that sort of mystical, spiritual, a little bit woo-woo Judaism is something that you grew up with at all?
So I have to say that I actually, even though my family and all of my extended family is Jewish, to varying degrees of like religiosity, my immediate family I was actually raised like neo-Buddhist.
Oh,
which
feels very LA Jewish, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I was going to say that they say that the most Jewish thing you can be is Buddhist.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I will say that like the difference that I've noticed isn't so much about like any sense of like mysticism as much as it is that like in New York, if you say that you're Jewish to other Jews, they're like, oh yeah, sure, or non-Jewish people are like, oh yeah, sure, But then in LA, if you say you're Jewish, everyone says, oh, I wish I was Jewish.
Yes,
yes, like,
that's so true.
And I don't know. And okay, so unfortunately, like I am sort of like, well. Yeah, it's because the Jews run the media, right? It's like, and it's like that's like it's like the business in the town. So it's like, yeah, of course you wish you had this, and it's like meanwhile I'm like a chubby 7-year-old. Like,
what's the difference between Buddhism? What's the difference between Buddhism and neo-Buddhism?
I am referring to this particular sect of like Buddhism that was like broke off in. I hear someone typing. Is someone like researching neo-Buddhism?
You can hear Brent's research when there's a question he wants to have answered.
Yeah. So, by the way, it's not like a formal term. It's me.
Right.
It's like me It's me calling it that. So Brent, you're not going to find it unless you look deep into my.
I didn't
Well, I
find
always
it.
assumed I always assumed it referred to like just someone who it's sort of like the casual Jew. This sort of just like you take the benefits of Buddhism, but you're not actually studying Buddhism.
Okay,
You're sort of
do you
living
know?
a very.
Do you know the like Buddhist organization that like Tina Turner and Courtney Love are in?
Yeah.
So that's what I was raised in.
Okay. Got it. There's a
And
great
that's not
scene in What's Love
Kabbalah?
Got to Do with. No,
No.
it's not Kabbalah. It's different.
Yeah.
There's a great scene in What's Love Got to Do with It where
Where she's
Angela Bassett learns about Buddhism, and then there's just a montage of her going Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo for like 5 minutes, and it is probably one of my favorite parts of a movie ever. Max,
I found that so corny because I found that so corny, and because
well, you can find it corny, but I personally now live by it. It's literally I watch for it and I wait for it in the movie. I'm like, go there, Angela.
I might have enough
scene.
distance. I might have enough distance to watch it now and be okay with it.
You should, because it's great. It's a great scene. Max, it was so fun chatting with you. Where can people follow you on the internet, find your shows, see you live?
Yeah, so I am based in New York, but I come back to LA a lot. My upcoming shows are I have September 12th in Philadelphia. I'm performing at Philomoka, my hour with called I Can Steal Your Mother. I have 2 wonderful openers, Michael Watkins and Kyle Harris. And then a couple days later in New York, I'm going to be performing at Littlefield on September 15th. I said September 12th before for the Philly show, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure all these things are on your social media accounts. So yeah,
exactly.
People can find you there and check out these shows.
Yeah, and then I have a Boston show. I'm just going to throw that
awesome.
in.
That's great. Well, thanks so much.
Wait. What is your social media account?
Oh, well, it would happen to be the most obvious thing you could think of, which is just my
name. Max Wittert.
There we go.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Max.
Thanks, Max.
You guys are delightful. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
And another thing.
So I have, as I've mentioned on our podcast and in our friendship, I am really into this franchise on A&E called Blank Wars, Neighborhood Wars, Customer Wars, and now Road Wars. I love Road Wars. It's just mostly CCTV footage or captured on your, footage from phones or whatnot, security cams of dash cams of conflict.
Of anger.
Can't get enough, and especially Customer Wars takes place in stores for the most part. Neighborhood Wars is obviously homes, and and Road Wars is on the road rage, fights, and some pretty intense
it's
accidents.
in the title. I think it's in the title.
Yeah. So now I wonder, because I've gotten so into it, it's given me a new appreciation for Brent, for in particular your love of videos of court cam brawls, real interrogations, and air disasters. And I wonder if we could try and analyze what we love about these things. I've had to ask myself, what do I love about these shows?
The moment you started talking about this months ago, years ago, however long you've been watching this, I know exactly where it stems from for you, and I actually support it, because if it stops you from throwing Tic Tacs, pennies, different items at cars while you're driving, and it controls your road rage, which I do think will be the thing that Brent and I are interviewed about if we ever make it on the news.
I agree.
If it stops you from doing that, and you you put all of that sort of pent up anger into watching these shows, please continue, buy the box set, watch them all.
It's not just the Road Wars, though. I'm fascinated with
it's anger, because even your road rage comes from anger that you can't express elsewhere. So which is always, talk to your therapist about it, but it always is that. So that's what I'm saying. Your interest in it probably stems from something around that.
Well, let's start things off by asking Alan the question: do you indulge in any dark videos? We'll say dark in quotes here. It doesn't have to be, beheadings, but do you indulge in any of this stuff?
Go straight to beheadings. I really don't. I'm not I true crime is probably the extent of my sort of rage watching, I guess, but it's not.
I don't care about true. That's the thing. Unlike you guys, I just don't. I'm not really interested in true crime. But you love it
because of the rage part. You have the rage in you. So no, I don't. I actually, and I find I get really disturbed by, so like Twitter being the shit show that it is, the algorithm is so fucked up that you look at one thing or someone texts you one thing and you click on it and it becomes the thing that is your feed. And so on Twitter, sometimes one day it'll just be fights or murders even, like, or discuss like the crazy ways people die and stuff. And it's just like, and I find myself endlessly blocking these accounts because I don't want to see this stuff.
Yeah.
And yet it just keeps getting delivered to me. And it's so, for me, it's just so disturbing because even though I like true crime, I don't like that, seeing how low and how disgusting people can actually be.
How depraved. It's interesting. I had similar reactions. I've been into darker, and weirdly enough, let me also, preface by saying I'm probably less into dark videos than ever before in my life.
Oh, wow.
Almost my entire adult life, I remember going to sites like Live Leak or Break.
Gore Fest or whatever.
There was a Best Gore
True
at one
gore,
point.
Best Gore.
Best Gore. But I broke out of it just because, I think the thing that I found interesting was that, getting into a fight on the subway is kind of like, a sum of all fears for a guy like me. And it's also the kind of thing that's so foreign to my life that it was almost soothing to be like, this will never be you. You can watch these things knowing that you aren't an antagonist in public.
Right.
That you won't, you try to diffuse situations when they become contentious, et cetera, et cetera. And so, a dear friend of the podcast, Megan Gans, once was talking about how she enjoyed true crime because there was a sense of like, it was so soothing because you're like, well, at least that ain't me. No matter how bad your day was, at least you're not the person who was, got, beheaded or whatever.
I think the same thing. I think maybe there's a catharsis in watching people go to lengths that I don't think you know what it is? Honestly, I'm fascinated by conflict, by real, true conflict, whether it's, in a store or a neighbor or someone on the road. Obviously the road, it's my own road rage and desire for street justice that fuels watching that. But in terms of customer wars and neighborhood wars, I am like fascinated in seeing people indulge in conflict in such primitive, Neanderthalistic base ways that I don't think I could do because I like to think I have some empathy.
But look, here's the reality, Eliot. You are a road rager. You throw things out of your car at other people. And one time you were followed by someone for, what was it, 2 miles?
I don't know. Yeah, sure.
It was a ways.
He was followed.
And whether you are a diffuser of tensions or not, that guy, you instigated with a hothead, and that becomes your problem when you are
You're right.
a road rager. And
You're not wrong.
and I'm not trying to lambast you, but I do genuinely worry because
I do too.
I care very deeply about both of you as a friend, but I worry about you because in LA, that was one of my first lessons. I was like, I'm going to emotionally detach myself from the rage that I do get, because we all get it. Because I'm like, I have no fucking idea how many of these motherfuckers driving next to me have cars, have guns in their car, or will follow me home and beat the shit out of me if I honk at them at the wrong turn. I had a friend of mine, who shall remain nameless, sir. But I had a friend she said she still has no idea what she did. She thinks she might have turned right on a red light and maybe pulled somewhat in front of someone. I guess maybe someone had to, but she said this guy followed her for 1.5 miles and she started sobbing. She called 911 and she had to literally scream at him, "What do you want?" And he finally drove off. Like, you don't want to piss off that psycho.
Yeah, it's disturbing. It can be so like that. I totally agree. That is sort of my MO. And even like driving around Los Angeles, like sometimes Michael will be like, "Why don't you just honk?" And I'm like, it's just not worth it half the time. Like, unless it's to tip someone off to turn or whatever it is, it's like the aggressive honk in a city like Los Angeles, I think is not even necessary, just because it is. I don't think Los Angeles is a dangerous city, but I think Los Angeles has a lot of people coming in and out of the city, and it's a car culture city where people are angry a lot of the time because of the normal aggressors that car culture brings. Traffic, frustrating drivers, not driving fast enough. Like here in Los Angeles, I just saw some viral TikTok of someone who moved here from Tennessee, and she said moved to Los Angeles, and she said one of the funniest things. She was like, one of the things I noticed about moving to Los Angeles is that highway speeds are kind of just a suggestion. They're just sort of just, keep up with the flow of traffic. That's more the highway speed.
That's the speed.
But that leads to crazy, crazy driving and crazy aggressive drivers that then can do crazy things.
For what it's worth, I have pivoted away from other aggressive drivers actually bothering me. I just sort of let it roll off my shoulders because I think...
How do you know they're aggressive?
If they're driving aggressively...
So you're saying if someone's being aggressive with you, you let that
I don't
go.
care. I stop. What I really do, because now I genuinely am like, no, it's not worth it to engage with somebody who's aggressive. But the thing that really, lights my fire, still lights that fuse, are the tentative drivers who are deciding what to do in the middle of the road.
What bothers you about them, though?
What bothers me?
Yeah. What is?
Oh.
I mean, I ask you genuinely too, because what I always think is, this might be cutting deep. You aren't more important than them, and where you're going is not more important than their place,
irony.
and their place is not more important than yours. So how about you just take the moment of your AC going out? It is an inconvenience that happens in life, but yet you have no control over some things, and you have to accept that.
Wait, here's the irony. I don't think I'm more important than them. I think they think they're more important than me, in that they are so inconsiderate that they are inconveniencing everybody around them, me included, by just sitting, going slow, figuring out as they go, and that is wrong.
But what if they're not thinking that? What if they are genuinely just that way, and it is just a reality that
then they
we're
shouldn't
all
be driving?
Then we're all different. But that's the reality: is they can drive. They are legally allowed to drive.
They shouldn't.
So
they shouldn't.
You have to be. You have to accommodate that. You
Take
do.
the bus.
I hear Alan. I definitely hear Alan. I think, Eliot, that's a fair point, which is everyone has had fleeting moments of confusion on a road or something, and that's one thing. If someone is doing 15 miles down down Sunset Boulevard and in taking up 2 lanes, fair.
Yes.
That's
fair.
Also annoying. I get that. Here's the other take home. I'm gonna go back to this though. Here's the other take home that I learned from watching all these dark fight videos and so forth was I think most men, regardless of the fact that I'm not an alpha male, most men, I still think I can fight. I've never been in a fight. I've never been trained to fight, but I think I can fight. Yeah. And I think that's a delusion that a lot of men have.
Yes.
And there are some people out there who have been in fights. There's some people who are good at fighting. And I've seen a lot of fighting. Who like fighting.
It. Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of fucking videos of people who think they can fight and they
can't.
cannot.
They cannot.
I.e. Brent James Sullivan instigating with someone who does know how to fight.
Yeah.
And that ends very poorly. So I learned, it genuinely has taught me to be know your role. Look, I've flirted with taking BJJ, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, for years. I've always wanted to take a self-defense class.
I thought it was going somewhere else.
I've wanted to do that my entire life, and I've put it off my whole life. And one of these days, maybe I'll do it. And then I can take care of myself. But until then, I can't.
Well, I just love the concept of, I get I'm going to encounter bad drivers. And people are probably annoyed by me sometimes. And I also accept that. And for me, I lean into the comic in me in that I love complaining. I love complaining about people and telling my friends about stupid things that happen, but I'm never going to instigate it with that other person. I'm just going to talk about that other person and complain about them to other people. And so that's what I would encourage you to do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Complain. Call us when you get angry about someone driving.
Very non-committal response from Eliot Glazer.
Yeah, just while he shakes his Tic Tacs ready to throw him out the window.
I did that the other day.
Stop doing that. Seriously, stop it.
What would your aunt say?
Brent, what would your Aunt Ramona say about something she heard on today's show?
I wasn't listening. Too busy filling out my donation to Sweet Briar College.
My Aunt Joanne would say, Roz Chast sounds Jewish to me.
Yes.
How about Aunt Anne?
Aunt Anne would say, now, I have nothing against trans women in college, but I'll be honest, sometimes I don't want women talking to me at the grocery store. They talk too much.
That's very true.
They talk
It's
too
very
much.
true.
I'm just trying to buy my melons.
Yes, you are. Speaking of which, I just bought a watermelon today,
Oh,
and I'm
there you go.
excited.
Nice.
They've been normally when I buy watermelons, it's like you get one good one, and then the rest are fucking trash.
You know,
For the
I
rest
had
of
that.
the year.
I had that
Sorry.
with avocados the other day. I bought some avocados
interesting.
and days still never was good. Pissed me off every single time.
It's
And
frustrating.
only part of it seemed squishy and then it wasn't quite ready.
Yeah.
Ugh,
And with
so
watermelon,
annoying.
you fucking. I went to the grocery store. It's $20. It's like
Yeah, it is. It's
Jesus
expensive.
Christ. I want
Yeah.
this to be
For a
good.
big one?
So I got not a personal sized, but the middle ground. So it's not one of those elongated ones. Elliot's going to start groaning. It's not one of the elongated ones. It's one of the regular
The
ones.
elongated ones, I saw one elongated one recently. I took a picture of it. So wild. I mean,
It's long.
it's phallic like. Here, you can see it in the video.
Oh, good
There.
Lord.
Look at that. Look at that.
Elliot's, his eyes are going to start rolling back in his head.
Oh my God.